Ready for a deep dive into something pretty wild? We're talking about a scientific discovery that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction today. A dye that can actually make skin transparent,
Yeah.
like the Invisible Man, but in real life.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, H.G. Wells used a made-up substance back in 1897 when he wrote that. But this new research actually uses the same basic scientific idea he came up with, messing with how light interacts with our bodies.
We're diving into a recent YouTube video by Anton Petrov about all this, so imagine being able to see through skin and revealing everything underneath.
And that's where the science of refraction comes into play. It's key to understanding how this even works, basically.
Yeah.
Light doesn't travel through all materials the same way.
Okay, so picture this. You're back in high school science class, staring at that prism splitting light into a rainbow.
Exactly. That's refraction in action.
Yeah.
Light bends when it goes from one thing to another, like from air to glass.
Yeah.
Because they slow down light differently. And that slowing down factor, that's called the refractive index.
So how does this apply to our skin? We're not exactly see-through yet, at least.
Right. Our bodies are kind of like walking,
Yeah.
talking mosaics of all this different stuff. Water, proteins, fats, and each ingredient, it has its own refractive index. So when light hits our skin, it bounces around like crazy off all those different parts. That's what makes us opaque.
But these scientists, they found a way to change that.
Well, they use some pretty high-level math. Don't worry, I won't bore you with the details. But they basically figured out if a special solution could actually change how light travels through tissue, like tweaking a recipe so that light passes through more smoothly. And that would make the tissue appear less solid and more see-through.
Okay, now I gotta know. What is this magic solution?
It's probably something you even have in your pantry right now. Tartrazine. Or better known as yellow, #5.
Wait, you mean the food dye that's in everything from candy to those neon orange nachos?
The very same. It turns out that tartrazine molecules have this unique structure that when it's mixed into a solution, it can drastically reduce how much light scatters, thus making things more transparent. Pretty wild, huh?
Okay, so they're not just like dunking chickens in vats of food dye, are they? How did they even test this?
Well, they started small, with these tiny pieces of chicken tissue. And wouldn't you know it, the opaque tissue actually started becoming more transparent, taking on that yellowish tint of the dye.
So it worked. But we're not just talking about see-through chicken nuggets, are we? What about testing on something alive? So they're making tissues see-through in the lab. But did they try it on something alive?
That was the next step. They decided to test this tartrazine solution on live mice, applying it to different areas of their bodies.
Okay, so I'm picturing a bunch of scientists carefully applying food coloring to mice. What did they see? Did it actually work?
It was pretty remarkable. The skin actually started becoming transparent, revealing the blood vessels just beneath the surface. In some cases, they could even see deeper structures, like intestines and even the beating heart of the mouse.
Hold on, they could see a beating heart through the skin. That's incredible. But is it safe? I mean, we're talking about food coloring here.
Yeah, that's a good question. But from what we know so far, tartrazine, at least in these kinds of applications, seems to be surprisingly safe. And the effect is totally reversible. Once they washed the solution off, the mice's skin went back to its normal appearance. No permanent neon yellow side effects or anything.
That's good to know. Okay, so we can see through mice now. What's the bigger picture here? What does this mean for, say, medicine?
Well, the potential is huge here, especially in healthcare. Imagine being able to see blood vessels or tumors or other internal structures without needing x-rays or MRIs or even biopsies.
So no more claustrophobia-inducing machines or invasive procedures. Sign me up.
Exactly. It could totally revolutionize medical imaging and diagnostics, leading to faster and more accurate diagnoses. Imagine real-time guidance during complex surgeries, making them less invasive.
Okay, now we're talking. That's huge. But this was all done on mice. Human skin is a lot different, right?
That's true. Human skin is actually about 10 times thicker than a mouse's, so it's definitely more complicated.
So the million-dollar question, will this tartrazine trick work on us?
That's the big question researchers are trying to figure out right now. They seem optimistic, and we know that most people already consume tartrazine pretty regularly with no ill effects.
True. It's in everything these days. But are we all just a few bags of chips away from becoming see-through?
Not quite that simple. While tartrazine is considered safe to eat, applying it to human skin, let alone injecting it to see deeper, that requires a lot more research and careful consideration.
Of course, safety first. But this whole thing is mind-blowing. It's like something straight out of H.G. Wells. You know, in The Invisible Man, he uses this fictional potion to become invisible.
And here's the really wild part. Both that fictional story and this real scientific discovery, They both depend on the same principle, changing how light interacts with our bodies. It's incredible, really.
It really makes you wonder, what other science fiction concepts might be closer to reality than we think?
I know, right? It's like they say, today's science fiction is tomorrow's reality. And this time, that reality. It might be a lot closer than we think. Who knew a simple food dye could have this much potential? It really gets you thinking. I mean, this discovery just goes to show, even the most out there ideas, they can lead to incredible breakthroughs with a little ingenuity and a lot of research.
It really makes you look at that bottle of yellow food coloring a little differently now.
It does. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that there's always something new to discover, always another scientific frontier out there waiting to be explored. And sometimes, the most unexpected discoveries, they come from challenging what we think we know and just asking, what if?
So to all our listeners out there, next time you're reaching for that bottle of yellow #5, maybe take a second and think about the mind-blowing science behind it. You never know, it might just spark your next big idea. This has been The Deep Dive. Signing off.